So this is a application that for transitions. This is lesson 7 in your Premiere Pro 2017 book. This is just the first part of this very long chapter on the application of transitions. So I've got a couple of things here on the mouse that my beginning editing class has requested that allows me to do things like this: highlight my mouse where it's going, show you clicks when I click something. Red circle appears there if it's a left click. A green circle like that appears if it's a right click. Right? So you can see this, and hopefully this is going to help us with what we're doing today. Okay, so I have opened lesson 7 here, and what I want to do is when we open this, we're going to be in the editing tab. We want to go over to effects and hit the effects tab. This is what it looks like in editing, and it'll probably open like this. If not, great. If it does, you're in editing and you can see it's editing because it's highlighted here in blue. Just go over to the effects tab and click effects. Go over here to the effects tab on the upper right hand corner and click this little, let me scroll in here for you, this little set of lines here, and I want you to go to panel group settings, and I want you to make sure stacked panel group is selected, and it is here, so I can click in the gray area. What this does is when I click the word effects here, it closes up all of this so that I don't have to look at all of this. I only have to deal with what I want to work with. So what we're going to do is open up over here in the project panel. We're going to open up transition 1 sequence and play through that just so you can see what it looks like. All right, so that's what that looks like. Not a big deal here. So just a series of slow motion clips. So I want to make this a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do is hit the backstroke key, and you can then make this larger. If it's hitting the backstroke key here, let me see where my, there it is. The backstroke key here, there you can see as I hit the keys there, they will show up there. We'll make this sometimes larger or smaller. What it does is bring your entire sequence into this window here, into the timeline sequence window. So if you've got 2 clips or if you've got 200 clips, all of them are going to be brought in here. So that makes this a little larger, able for us to see it. So let's look at where our transitions are. Up here in the effects window, video transitions, this small disclosure triangle right here opens up, and we see we have a series of transitions. We're going to look at this one, dissolve, open that up, and you can see right here that cross dissolve has a blue square around it. That indicates that this is the default transition that we've set. This is the one that comes with Final Cut Pro, and we're going to leave it like this. You can change it to any other video transitions that you want. So if you're going to do something that's very stylized, let's say we want to do dip to white, which is having a resurgence now. It's become very popular in a lot of things in newsreels and sports. And I can right-click that and set selected as default transition. And if I click that, then my blue square moves to dip to white. And now whenever I apply a default transition, it will be a dip to white. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back to this. I'm going to right-click on this, and I'm going to click Set Default Transition. So that's my default transition. Okay, so how do I do this? Well, let's look at this. The first thing we want to do is we want to apply a transition to the beginning of this because it just jumps in here, and at the end it should fade up and it should fade out. So I want to drag this. One of the ways to apply this transition is to just click this cross dissolve and drag it here and put it right there on my beginning and transition. Now, it's not letting me do this for a simple reason. If I drag it to the end and try to put this transition here, it goes there. If I go back to the beginning, drag it and drop it, there it goes. Now, if I click this twice, left click it twice, I open the Set Transition Duration window, and I can manually set the duration here. Its default transition timing is 1 second, and that's the default transition time for all of the transitions set for for Premiere Pro 2017. I'm going to click OK. If I want to change that forever and a day, I can go up here to Premiere Pro CC. I can go to Preferences, General, and click that. And then you can see here, Video Transition Default Durations. It's set at 1 second. I can change it from seconds to frames. I'm going to leave it at seconds because by doing this, what happens is that if I have mixed video, if I have video that's shot at 60 frames per second, or 24 frames per second, or 29.97 frames per second, whatever I've got that video in its frame rate, it's going to apply 1 second transitions. If I leave it at frames and I select the amount of frames, 30 frames per second, 30 frames per second in 29.97 would be a 1 second transition, but it would be a half a second transition if my video was 60 frames per second. So it can get a little uneven, and you want to be unified. So we're going to keep it in seconds. We're going to keep our default transition timing at 1 second. We're going to go down here into the bottom and click OK. All right, so there's my default transition by cross dissolve, and let's look at this as we bring it up. It fades up. As we move it over here, it fades out. It just doesn't drop out. This is more of a dip to color or dip to black. We have black and dip to white over here. And let's take this dip to white, right? And let's drag this to this first edit point. Now, when I say edit point, we discussed this before in class. Let's just review. An edit point is where two clips come together. That right there is the edit point, right? This is your outgoing clip. This is your incoming clip. Outgoing clip, incoming clip. Here's my dip to color. Let's just play that for a second. And there's my dip to white. If I click this once, let me do that again. Click this to open it. And the window up in the upper left, there you go. Well, in the upper left-hand corner here, and for some reason or other, that's not working for me. But we'll go to another one. Let's go down to slide over here, and let's grab slide, and let's apply it to the next edit point. And I see why I'm not in my effects up here. Effects control, there we go. Have to be in that. So if I double click this, let's look at this window up here. All right, so here's my effects window. I've got my transition here, and that's the edit point. And then I've got a couple of things over here. A, which is blue, is my outgoing clip. Here is my incoming clip. And I have a couple of options here. I can set the duration manually at this point, or I can select one of these. Center at the edit point, which this is here, or I can start at cut, select that, and it begins right at that edit point, or I can select end at cut, and the transition will actually end at that cut. That means this is actually going to fade out, and then this second clip is going to pop in, right? Or I can do a custom. I'm going to leave this at center at cut. Now notice that I've got just A and B here. If I want to actually see what these two clips are, I can go down here to show actual sources and click this checkbox. Now I can see what I've got. If I look at this, I can see my transition. And this, I'm doing the slide here. There we go. Now, in this slide, as I look at this, I'm going to put my playhead right in the middle of this. Here, this is sliding from left to right, and there is a thin line here. I want to make a visual separation, and so I can go over here in this window and look at border width, I'm going to change this to 17. Make this nice and wide. And so there's that black border, that visual separation. But I don't want it to be black. I want it to be more in keeping with these two clips. So I'm going to take my eyedropper here, left click on that, and I'm going to select just a blue that's in this clock here. But since that clock is so big here, that blue just kind of blends in a little too much. So I can go back and select my eyedropper again and just click the red of her dress. That's much more of a visual separation. Right? Now, also, I can click reverse so that it now moves off. As you see, I drag through here. It's moving off to the left. Initially, as you drag through here, it's coming on from the left. So that's another option that you can use. Okay, so if you want to play your transition, up here you have a little arrow here. This looks like just the play icon on your desktop for DVDs, and it plays in this window right here. It just plays over and over and over again, and you can resize this window here and then stop it. So if you want to look at it there as you change the stuff. Now let's look at this. As I move my cursor up into this transition, it changes. If I put it right on this transition point, this edit point, it turns to the roll tool. Now if I left click and hold, I can roll this edit point to the right or to the left, provided I've got additional footage at the foot of this or at the head of the incoming, the foot of the outgoing or the head of the incoming. It won't move that if I don't. If I move it, let me Command Z that and get that back to where it should be. If I move it to the right or to the left of the edit point, it turns into the slide tool. And then it's sliding in transition, so it's more uneven. So if I need to take out something or I need to edit this way, I can simply move the transition so that it's a little uneven to make it sometimes more interesting or to edit out certain visual parts of the clip. Dip to color. Up here, I don't have anything that I can edit with this. It's dip to color. It's white, right? I don't get to change that color. But let's look at one that I can change. Let's look at push. I can drag this over and drop it here. Single click push, and here's my push. Again, I can change the color. I want to make this border width here. Let's look at this push real quick. There's my push. Kind of like the slide, right? Here's my border width. Let's put this back to 17. Make it nice and wide. And you can see I have my black there. Let's make this one a really obvious color. So instead of clicking the eyedropper, I'm going to click this swatch. It's black right now, but then it turns into this spectrum here, and I can drag this and make whatever color I want. I'm going to make this a nasty little green. And whatever color is in that circle, when I click there, that's my swatch. I click OK, and there's my green. Okay? So let's do this. Let's take this, and we're going to click on this, and I'm going to right-click on it and select Clear to delete it. Now, if I click on an edit point, I can then use the shortcut. Here my edit point is selected, and I can use the shortcut Command D to apply that transition. Again, Command D will automatically apply that transition to a selected edit point. The trick is you've got to select the edit point first so the computer knows where you want to put that. And when you use Command D, it's going to apply whatever is your default transition, indicated here by the blue square, which is our cross dissolve. So now that we've got those here, let's look at this fade up. Here's my dip to white, my off slide, my push, which looks just like the slide to me, and then there's the fade out. So let's look at this push. Let's take this one, and we're going to right click on it, and we're going to clear it. And let's go over here to something a little more interesting. Under page peel, we have some interesting items. Page peel I can drag over here and drop in. Now, page peel needs to render. There's my page peel, right? And I can reverse it so that it peels that way, right? Or I can leave it the way it is. And I'm going to leave it centered at cut, but I can start this. Let's start at that cut and see what happens. That's a little more interesting. Great. So I'm going to leave that there. That's a very interesting but stylized option for us. Okay, so playing this whole thing, let's look at this. There's my fade up. There's my dip to white. There's my slide. And then there's my page peel. And then my fade to black. All right, now if you see this red line, that means it hasn't been rendered. You want to know where the render is, go up to help, or anything, go up to help and just type in the render. Render in to out. And it shows you right where it is under sequence, render in to out. So you go up here and select render in to out. I have 271 frames to render. Takes about 10 seconds, and then everything is, this line is now green, and everything is rendered and should play smoothly. Okay, so what do we want you to remember? I want you to remember from this, we have to be in the effects, not in the editing, but I want it to be in effects. And over here, we have our series of video transitions. The effects here are group panel settings, stacked panel groups. So we don't have a whole bunch of stuff filling up over here. And we can close this in and open it up if we need it. Video transitions. And dissolve, the blue square, shows us that this is our default transition. We have a series of transitions that we can use here, and you can explore those on your own simply by opening up any of these disclosure triangles and playing with those. We apply a transition by dragging and dropping it to an edit point being the conjunction or the meeting of two slides. The slide on the left is going to be your outgoing slide. The one on the right is going to be your incoming slide. Double click the slide, the transition, to open up the transition duration window. Set your timing or change it if you want to. Right click it. You can see in the effects window, and you have to be in effects over here. You see your transition, and you can set it to start at cut, end at cut, center at cut, or customize it. Set your transition time here, playback here, show actual sources, or change any of the parameters that are published with that particular transition. And that should help you in applying a standard transition or a specific transition to any edit point. All right, Command D is our default. Command D is the default transition application shortcut. And that's it for this lesson. Hope you enjoyed it.